Welcome back, Blade fans. We've got something special for you today. Yes, it is another custom knife, and no, you can't buy this right off the shelf, and that may not interest some of you. But if you're interested in unique one-of-a-kind knives, in this case from Morgan Koens, who calls his shop Koenscraft. I've shown you a number of others in the past. This one was one I had special ordered and helped design. I wanted a traditional style Tanto. And we're going to get into that subject just a little bit, and I've got some other examples nearby me. And let's take a look first. This has been hand ground from S35 VN steel. It is quite solid and heavy in the hand, more so than you would think in looking at it. I think because of the mass of the stock, and it is a straight tang. It's not a tapered tang. Tapered tangs are not something you see a whole lot anymore. They were certainly a thing during the era of the 1970s, 1980s custom knife makers, and is a bit of extra work. So this is simply a straight tang. I'm not sure if Morgan had skeletonized it underneath. I don't believe so. Handles are being held on with 2 screws, and these would appear to be hex or Allen on both sides. The grind is just really exceptional. Morgan does fantastically clean and crisp grinds. I asked for the traditional V-swedge at the top. This is not sharpened. You can see there's a flat there. It aids in penetration on the thrust. And the Tanto knife was a knife used by the samurai, carried as the third weapon, usually in concert with the longsword or katana and the shorter wakizashi. And there are many that know much more about the Japanese knife tradition than I was exposed to it somewhat in my days in studying the Japanese martial arts. And having been born overseas long ago in Asia, but not being of Asian descent, I had quite a fascination with some of the things that came back with my family from where we were. So here you can see Morgan's signature, and I believe that is Koenscraft. It's either Koenscraft, yeah, it's Koenscraft. I don't believe it's Morgan Koens. Got a bead blast flat here. We've got satin finished swedge, satin finished main grind, and a very fine edge. This knife is both strong as well as slicey, and that's kind of the idea. The handle curves in the center and swells out slightly to the front and the back, giving you a little more grip, but still the ability to palm the knife for the thrust this way. If you check out some of James Williams' videos that he did for on the Columbia River knives that he designed, you can see him demonstrating actually punching one of his knives straight through like a car door sheet metal without slipping his hand down the handle. Now this one has an interesting sort of diagonal design, call it a herringbone design if you will. He did a run of a few of these in different styles with different handles and different blade treatments. He does a very interesting kind of smoky carbonizing of the blades too that looks like tiger stripe camo. This one I had wanted just in the satin finish. I think it has a nice clean look. That's what I was going for. We're going to measure it up so you know what we're looking at here and get the overall length first. So our overall length is 10.5 inches. Blade length is coming up close to 5 3/4, just shy between 5.5 and 5 3/4. It's a good length for a blade like this. There are certainly longer ones in this style and shorter ones. So what do we got here in inches? So let's get the handle. It's a good hand-filling handle. It's 0.83, and it is, as you can see, heavily contoured in kind of a three-sided. You put it all together, it's hexagonal. No, actually 8, octagonal, huh? Yeah, with the top flat. Each side having 3 sides, with that flat reserved for that pattern. Now if we go to the blade and get the thickness right up here, we get a 0.18. And if we get that in millimeters, let's see if I can get that, 4.7 millimeters. So pretty heavy blade stock, not quite 5 millimeters. And again, full thickness in the tang. Let's get to the weight. By the way, we don't have a sheath to weigh with this because Morgan does not fashion sheaths to go with his knives. That is the buyer's choice, either leather, Kydex, whatever. So you do need to consider adding that to the overall price. And something like this would come in somewhere in the vicinity of 3 1/4. That's very, very reasonable for handmade knives. So we've got in ounces 10.23 ounces. Fairly heavy blade. When I say blade, I mean knife. Still, with most of the weight in your hand and the balance point being right about at that front screw, it's not bad because you can hold back and get a longer grip. You can choke up, and there's plenty to hold on to. Really, really hand-filling. For me, notice my fingers reach all the way to my palm, but I don't feel as though I'm trying to get a good grip on it because it's too small. So for me, it's just right. It is a style of blade that I can most closely associate with, and I'm going to bring up a little chart here on my phone. I want to thank the folks out at marshallswords.com for showing this diagram of all the various Tanto styles you can see. And if you freeze frame that, you can probably zoom in and see the names. I would say this most closely is could be associated with the I'm going to have to bring it up closer to read it, the Osoraku style. It's not quite as narrow as the Osoraku. But let's show you some other examples. Here is a Chris Williams design. That's the son of James Williams. Mini Kaiken, Osoraku Zukuri style. You notice how that's got that extra little point there. And then it's got the belly going forward. So very similar, really, when you look at them. Tilt it up a little bit there. And you can see you've got the swedge on top here too. A little more of a flat, but basically the same, if not similar, blade without that change of grind there. And it's a smaller knife. This is more like a 3.5 inch hideout kind of a knife. Call it hideout, for you call it a boot knife if you want. And then we have the very popular, came out in 2022, I think at the SHOT Show. This is designed by Bob Terzuola for Civivi, and this is the Tamashii. And this is also Similar, you see a partial top swedge on that one, so you've got a thumb ramp there with some jimping. No jimping on this one. That's not really traditional, but Bob's is kind of a hybrid. And you notice a smaller knife. So I think this is coming in at around 4.5 or 4. Yeah, 4.25 on the Tamashii. Beautiful knife if you can get a hold of one, and just came out in brown canvas micarta. Looks outstanding. I've got this one in black and I think in green. And it comes with a nice Kydex sheath with a clip, by the way, Techlock clip, designed by none other than Mr. Terzuola himself. Now here's the contrast. In the early 80s, a company by the name of Cold Steel came out with a Tanto. This is not the one. This is not the original Tanto. This is the Koban, a lighter, more boot-friendly, if you will, with a craton handle Tanto. And here you can see the tip that we all associate with the Tanto name. That double-faceted hollow ground here, flat ground at the tip, with that secondary point, if you want to call it a point. All right. This is the one everybody has grown to know and love, and I love them too. I've got a number of this. We call it Americanized Tanto because really what Lin did was take the tip of a armor-penetrating sword, katana. There were one or two with this style blade, and he incorporated it onto the knife length blade. Okay. You don't see too many knives, if any, traditional Japanese knives that have this defined chisel point. We call that a chisel point. Not a chisel grind, which is a one-sided grind, but a chisel point. So there's the difference between what I'm calling a traditional Tanto in the Osoraku Zukuri style and the Americanized Tanto. Some people don't like that term, you know, the purists who've studied all of this, but these are my high-level generalized terms that I think everybody can understand, even if they're not necessarily 100% technically accurate. But just a beautiful knife by Morgan, once again, and I plan on doing my full collection overview soon of all of my Koenscraft knives. I've got a couple more coming in, so I think I'm going to wait for that and then probably show you half a dozen or so different styles, wide variety of styles. And you can get a hold of Morgan on Instagram is the best way. I'll leave you a link to his Instagram page where you can see many, many photos of a real wide variety of blade designs that he has produced. Again, handmade, hand ground, 100%. His shop is up in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada area. And he is an outdoorsman, loves the woods, has a beautiful big family, and is just a really great, upstanding guy. He and Dirk Pinkerton and Ken Vahikate and others are Josh Mason, some of my favorite makers. So there you go. Hope you enjoy this video. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe. I'll be back soon.